So heads up, just wanted to let you guys know that I will be pausing the video just so the video fully could save. And you are more than welcome to speed up the video. So let's begin. I am really not ready for these emotions, but it's something that I feel that I need to do because my divorce is almost finalized. And this is me basically dealing with my healing journey. And yeah, so here we go. My name's Liliana and I am 34 years old, and I met my abuser when I was 21 and he was 20, almost 21, and I met him by the name of Esteban Lopez, but a lot of people know him as Steven. Steven and I met at barbering school. I was attending the Cosmo program and he was attending the barbering school. The first time I basically had some sort of interaction with Steven, I basically had bumped into a girl that I knew in high school, and I had her for, I believe, history, and I only had her for one class 1 year. And I remember going up to her and I was like, "What are you doing here?" She was like, "Oh, I'm here because of my boyfriend," and proceeds to point at Steven. Steven turns around and says, "Hi," and that was it. Later on, like a few days later, I got introduced to Steven by one of our mutual friends, which I still have contact with him. So he introduces us, we say hi, etc., and that's it, right? A few days later, I want to say maybe 2 weeks after I had seen the girl that basically I knew from high school. I don't want to mention their names whatsoever, and the only reason why I'm mentioning Esteban's name, it's because obviously it's public record and it's within the storyline that I'm going to be talking about later on in one of the episodes. So a few days later, maybe 2 weeks, like I said, Steven basically was outside our school and was carrying a baby boy. This baby boy was probably maybe 1.5 years, if that. And I remember this baby was wearing a onesie, short sleeves, not buttoned up, no socks, no shoes, just basically the shirt on, and the buttons were not even tucked, nothing. And I remember going up to him and I was like, "Who's this?" And he was like, "It's my baby." I was like, "Oh, okay." And I thought that it was the baby that belonged to the girl that I first knew. He basically was like, "No, it's my baby mama, blah, blah." Proceeds to tell me her name. So I was like, "Oh." So from that understanding, the conversation we had there was he broke up with the girl that I knew and got back with his baby mama, which now that I'm here, I will say that a lot of things that were said and are going to be said in this story is a lie. Because at this point, I feel like I don't even know who the fuck I married. So basically, he ends up giving me this whole story that he broke up with the girl that I knew and decided to work things out with his baby mama. And we just kept it as friends. One day, he basically was like, "I'll give you a ride home," because at that time, I was actually taking the bus home. Sorry, my anxiety just started kicking in. But so he ends up giving me a ride home because he said that basically where I lived was on his way to where he had to go. So I accept the ride and I see that there was a lot of girl stuff. And he basically had said that he was just barely moving in with his baby mama. When he ends up dropping me off, he basically ends up saying like, "Hey, like, here, get my number so me and my girl could go out with you and your baby daddy, but didn't realize that he didn't know that I wasn't with my baby daddy at the time. So I took his number. And then December, I want to say it was December 24th, which was Christmas Eve, my son accidentally ends up grabbing my phone and for some reason, odd reason, dials him. I grab the phone and I hang up. He basically ends up calling me back and asked me if I had called him, and I just said sorry, like my son had just like dialed you, whatever. And he sounded really frustrated. So he starts venting to me, saying that he was basically leaving his baby mama because he had seen her. Basically, he had gone somewhere and that she had stayed home with the son, and that he ended up showing up at the house, and that the baby mama, and I go because you'll eventually see why I go, ends up saying how the baby mama was doing some crazy shit and that there was another dude in the house, and basically that their son had seen everything. Then he says that he basically had enough and he was moving back to his mom's house. So right there, my understanding was he wasn't with the cheerleader, and that's how I'm gonna name her, the cheerleader, and he wasn't with baby mama anymore. So him and I actually started talking, and December 27th, 2011, he ends up inviting me to go eat. And I obviously said yes. And I ended up basically meeting his oldest sister, December 27, 2011. I ended up meeting her because he actually ended up taking me to her house to go eat. So I basically ate their Christmas leftovers. The whole time, basically, you could see that the sister was just kind of like off and just like looking at me weird, but I really didn't understand why. But the truth is that years later, and I mean years later, I ended up finding out that the reason why the sister was looking at me super weird was because he had given her the story that I basically knew about the cheerleader and that I was okay being the side girl. And yeah, so that was my intro basically to meeting the sister, and I didn't even know about it. So we continued dating, and New Year's comes. And New Year's, basically, New Year's Eve, he had said, hey, I want to take you for New Year's. Basically, can I pick you up? That New Year's Eve, I was with my mom because I lived with my mom at the time. It was my mom, my stepdad, my son, and I believe it was my two younger sisters at the time. We were all just hanging out, and I had gotten ready because I was supposedly going to spend New Year's with him. Comes to find out, he basically was saying a lot of excuses, and then at the end he's like, I'm rushing it because my mom's already annoyed. She's saying that why am I not there at my aunt's, because they were going to spend it at his aunt's house in Fontana. And years later, I basically come to find out that all that was a lie, and he actually did spend it in Fontana with his family, but with the cheerleader, because apparently he was still with the cheerleader. And I didn't know. According to his family, I knew, and all that shenanigans.